Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to I'm Calling HR, the November 4th edition. We're on a Wednesday today because yesterday was election day and we were all busy. So we just want to thank our sponsors, as we always do, Employernomics, the PBO Matchmaker, and Careaway HR. Let us know if you want to know anything about them. We have a great special guest today. Ron Wilkinson is a friend of mine. He is a CFO of nPerspective. There's his email, rwilkinson@npcfo.com, and there's their company logo, and there's a picture of Ron in a much younger day, I think. So here's the questions that we're going to ask Ron today and hopefully get into a discussion. So I'm going to go to the full screen here, and I've got the pictures off on the side screen, the questions. So I'll be asking you them. But so if I'm looking over here, it's not just because I'm looking at my bourbon, which we were talking about before, since it is after 5. So let's just say, first of all, you want people to ask you this question on what is a fractional CFO?
Good question, John. And by the way, thank you for having me on your show. I've heard such good things about it. I'm quite honored to be chosen as a guest.
Oh,
so thank you.
You're going to get your you're going to get your $20 too at the end.
I just got set up. Oh my. So a fractional CFO. There are a lot of second stage companies, and let me define a second stage company. Typically, a second stage company has got somewhere between 10 and 50 employees, and somewhere between, let's say, 5 and 40 to $50 million in gross revenues. Typically, a second stage company has grown rapidly, and many times still has the same employees they had when they were much, much smaller, which is wonderful. It's wonderful to grow with your employees. Hopefully your employees are growing with you. So at the same time, the needs that your company has are growing, and you don't often think about that. As a CEO, you're good at one thing. Whatever the widget is that you designed and that you want to sell, or the service that you provide, the reason that you started your company is because you're really, really passionate about that, and you're really, really good at that. But soon you find that there are other pieces of business that you can't perform. You're not a lawyer, you're not a marketing specialist, you're not an accountant, you're not a finance guy. And so you have to bolster your business with people that can do that for you. Sometimes you hire them, and sometimes you simply hire their company, a marketing company, for example. So we recognized a long time ago, our founder, Russell Slappy, recognized that there's a need for the kinds of services that CFOs can provide. But quite often these second stage companies cannot afford to hire a traditional full-blown CFO because they command a pretty strong salary. And yet the knowledge that the CFO brings to the table can be priceless. So what Russell started doing, what nPerspective does, is we have an entire stable of people who have been CFOs all of their lives, and probably CFOs for a variety of different kinds of companies. Me, for example, I've worked in almost every sector there is, and so I've got a lot of great experience. But we're able to go in and work with CEOs of second stage companies and help them with the things that they need help with that we can provide, and yet maybe only do it for 4 hours a week, or 8 hours a week, or 2 days a month, or whatever they decide that they feel like they need and can afford at the time. So quite often
that fits in perfectly with the theme of this show, which is why do we call HR? Because we believe in outsourcing, hire help, hire expertise. I like the premise. You don't have the money or maybe the need or the demand for a full-time CFO, but you still want chief financial officer duties. You can outsource it. So you're really in the same business I am. Outsourcing expertise.
Exactly.
So that gets into the next question, which is a perfect lead in, by the way. How do I know if I need one?
Well, so describing what we do generically just now, it leads into that answer, which is you've grown.
Well,
unbelievably.
What are the pain points? I mean, what some guy is going to, what are the problems somebody's having that you can come in and say, boy, if you had a part-time CFO, that problem would go away.
Sure, exactly. And that gets to the heart of it. So the pain points are you've grown rapidly, but you don't have systems in place that are repeatable and sustainable. You have a bank relationship, but it's not a healthy or helpful bank relationship. You have maybe some accounting help, but you have absolutely no internal controls. Frankly, you don't even know what an internal control is or why it's so critical in a larger company, or frankly, in any company. How to protect yourself against against employees who may be unscrupulous, or frankly, how to protect your employees from themselves, because when temptation strikes, it is sometimes hard to resist. So you, or on the other hand, you may have plateaued with your revenues, and maybe you don't know how to break through to the next level, or you may be beginning to lose revenue and you don't know why. You could be losing gross revenue, you could be losing net revenue, your expenses could be going up, and you don't know why. Typically, it's all of a sudden you see an anomaly that is causing you bottom line financial heartache. You don't know where to look for it. You have a lot of suspicions, and you know that you're good at selling widgets or providing a service, and you're not good at financial Sherlock Holmes adventures.
Can you
So
give an example of that? Like, just illustrate.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got two great examples, if I may. So I was working with a very large local legal firm, huge revenues, a huge staff of attorneys and non-attorneys, legal and non-legal folks, and they were killing it. They are killing it. One day, they were faced with the loss, or the almost loss, of $7 million. There was a wire transfer that had been initiated by a hacker, if you will, and the money was just about to leave the account when somebody at the bank, just at the last second, rather than press the button, said, I better call them. And they did. And they called this firm, and the firm had not, in fact, generated that wire transfer. Well, how did that happen? Just so happens that somebody in the accounting department had been shopping the couple days prior, and because of the shopping they were doing on the computer used to initiate wire transfers, there was a phishing scheme going on. And so this hacker type got into the computer, and a couple of days later, when this particular employee needed to make a wire transfer, she went in and the screen came up from the bank, and she thought to herself, gosh, that screen looks a little different than usual, but I'm sure the bank just did an update. And so she put all her information in, and everything happened. Well, so when she put her information in, now the hacker has everything he or she needed. And so it said they waited a few more days, and then they went in and they initiated the $7 million wire transfer. So what did that tell the law firm? They got a giant hole somewhere. So we talked about it, and we discovered that they had absolutely, for as large as they were and as smart as they were, they had no internal controls, none. And so I spent the better
part. Like an IT. That's more the internet security. So it's more than that. How is it more than internet security?
Internal controls run the gamut of everything within the organization. And you know what, John, you're right. In terms of the very narrow look at exactly what happened to them, it was a combination of an IT issue and an internal control issue.
Okay.
For example, the control is there should be one and only one dedicated computer for banking purposes, and absolutely nothing else exists on that computer. No software of any kind, not Microsoft Office, not nothing. The operating system, the banking software, period. And it's got to have major firewalls built into it. Now, when you do that, you can prevent it from even becoming an IT problem. What other controls are there that can occur? Well, checking accounts, payables is huge. who opens the bank statement, who reconciles the checking account, who signs off on payables checks. All of those things should be done by individuals, because if you do that, no one person can go in and embezzle. Same thing with payroll. A friend of mine had a company who lost, I want to say it was like $80,000 over the span of a few years because her payroll person was unscrupulous and had added 2 fake employees, and she was collecting their money, and she gave herself a huge increase every year and was collecting her own money. And because the owner of the company trusted her so much, she never looked.
I've seen that. I've seen that happen, and we caught it.
And so the other example that I'll use real quick is there's a local firm that a second stage company had grown extremely large, extremely quickly. They were in the $27 million range, but they had they had one part-time accounting person who was working from out of state, had no idea what she was doing in the way of accounting. There were no systems in place. Payroll was at risk, payables were at risk, deposits were at risk. All of these things were at risk. They had little to no HR support. They had no systems whatsoever. And that, plus there were some taxation issues that they didn't even know they had until we started looking at all the different properties that they owned and so on and so forth. And so they had just recently brought in a new tax firm, and the tax firm started to catch wind of this, and they recommended that this company talk to us, which they did, and they hired us in for about 1.5 years. We worked with them and helped them get all their things in order, and we shook hands and parted friends, and that was that. And that's what we do. That's the other beauty of being a fractional CFO. We don't stay forever. We stay until you've gotten from us what you need. Now, it may be there are some companies that want a part-time CFO to review things on a monthly basis, and we've got some clients like that. But many times it's project work. A project can be anywhere from a month to a year or longer.
So, backing up, a lot of this stuff, I want to hear you really break it down and tell me why I can't just use an IT firm or a CPA.
Good question. Thank you. Well, an IT firm is really, really good at IT. And quite often we will recommend that you bring in an IT firm to do audit work on your systems to make sure that your systems are safe and secure and all of that.
Okay.
However, they're not good at financial work. They're not good at accounting work. They're not good at systems, that is to say, all systems, operational systems analysis. They're good at IT work. The beauty of being a CFO, and I'll get to the CPA part of it in just a moment. The beauty of being a CFO is that over the years, as a CFO in a company, you really become the right-hand person or one of 2 right-hand people in an organization. Typically, you've got the CEO at the top, and then you've got a COO and a CFO, and usually they're right on the same line, each of them with a very specific function and a lot of responsibility. And usually those 2 positions work hand in hand. So you learn a lot as a CFO, frankly, and as a COO along the way. So we're able to look at and think about an awful lot more than just accounting or just finance. We've seen a lot, we've done a lot, we've built systems and so forth. So as a CPA is an extraordinarily intelligent individual. They have spent way too much time in accounting school and taking the CPA exam, which are just hard as can be. And man, do they know some stuff. They are some smart folks, and they can help you out of any and every tax problem you have. They can do your tax returns better than anybody. And I'm here to tell you that I'm not a tax guy, and I wouldn't even pretend to be. I know just enough to be able to help companies, but if we need some real serious tax help, I go to people who I know taxes. But CPAs quite often think or feel like they can do the work of a CFO, and many times they can to some degree. And trust me, I am not trying to diminish their abilities. I'm just saying that we all have specialties. I could never would never bill myself as a CPA type or to do that kind of work, because that's not my kind of work. I'm a CFO. And so we are able to go in and diagnose a whole myriad of problems and help solve a myriad of problems that a CPA may not be able to. And we also have a ton of resources, just like you. You're a wonderful resource for us, because I know if I run into yes, you personally, if I'm working with a company and I see that they've got weaknesses in HR or in payroll or whatever, I'm smart enough, well, sometimes I am anyway, to know what I don't know. And so I am smart enough to see the problem, but then I'm also smart enough to say, you know what, I need John. And then I bring John in, and John and I work together along with the CEO of the company to create the solution that's going to work best.
So what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you're not a CPA, you're not an IT firm, but you're probably the guy in between the CEO and those people that directs them the best way to implement the systems that you design. Does that make sense?
I couldn't have said that better myself. I'm going to ask you to write that down for me.
You're the guy.
That's a great marketing line.
You are the CEO looks outward, right? He's outgrowing the business. He needs someone who looks inward to manage inside. So you're going to manage inside while he grows. You clean up you clean up his mess, basically.
Well, I'm going to add to that a little bit. While yes, we do focus inside, quite often we are arm in arm, or better shoulder to shoulder, with the CEO as they grow. Because if the CEO says, I want to open up a new division, I think I want to start selling red widgets along with the blue widgets. Okay. What do I need to know? What do I need to think about? And they'll ask the COO and they'll ask the CFO. And so them using our own expertise, we will help to either answer questions or guide or research or whatever. So we are somewhat external in as much as we do go shoulder to shoulder with the CEO. But yes, I would say much of the time we are working internally to make sure that the house remains strong, solid, and impenetrable.
Well, you're a big picture. We're getting a little feedback there. Right?
Yes.
You're looking at the big picture, whereas the CPA is just looking at the finances. The IT guy is just looking at the computer systems. You're looking at the whole picture. You're sort of the synthesis, bringing it all together.
Yes.
So this next question is you're going to wow me with this one. I know. Are all fractional CFOs alike?
I hope not. and I mean that in a very good way, actually, because we all have, I think, specialties, uniqueness. Within our own firm, for example, Russell has gone to great lengths to make sure that he has a couple dozen people who are all very strong at what they do, but they all have uniqueness about them. One of our guys, for example, is a giant in government work. I'm telling you, he knows more about how to do government contracting and government auditing and accounting and all that. He knows more of that than I think 10 people could learn in 10 lifetimes. And so that's where he goes, and that's his specialty. Me, I've worked, as I say, I've worked everywhere, but if I had to give you a sweet spot, I'm best when it comes to service industries and not-for-profits, just because I worked in them for so long. I worked in radio and television and several not-for-profits and medical billing and things like that. So that's my sweet spot, although I have worked in manufacturing and yada, yada. And we've got guys who are great in construction. We have guys who are great in manufacturing, all of that. And most of us over our 20, 30, 40-year careers have worked in a lot of different places. Me, I've been in public and private and manufacturing and service and for-profit and not-for-profit and, just everywhere. And so I've learned a lot about a lot. So that makes me, I guess, well-rounded. And our personalities are different too. Sometimes, Russell's will literally think to himself, okay, now that I've met the CEO and know what kind of individual this is, who's going to be able to mesh best with that person? And so
that's what I was thinking. That you all have your niche, you all have you're looking for what's the best match for the business.
exactly. And then also, I will tell you that there are fractional CFO firms who are, again, we're all very good at what we do, but many of them don't go as broad or as deep as we do. And I'm just telling you this from observation. Some do, and some prefer to focus a little bit more on the accounting, for example. And so if your need is more or less just accounting, then those fractional CFO firms are absolutely great. But if you're looking for somebody that fills a more traditional CFO role, then we along with a few other companies are better at that, and that's again just the way it is.
Okay, so you've mentioned a lot of things, and I'm writing down little keywords that I'm going to bring up to you in my grilling session, which comes after this.
Okay, great.
Get ready. But
I'm
you have
ready.
asked me you want to tell us what other services, besides what you've already mentioned, what other resources do you bring to the table?
We have the ability to, for example, let's say that I'm working with a company. In fact, I am working with a company right now that has a very unique process, and I help them design literally an entirely new division for the company. And we determined about midway through that where we were financially wasn't going to be able to handle where we needed to be. And so I went from being the CFO that I've been to the CFO that needs to get out there and help find financing. So I've been working with a plethora of different, that's my $10 word for the day, a whole bunch of different kinds of alternative lending entities, and everywhere from regular banks to credit unions and the Exim Bank and factoring companies and just on and on and on, and even some private individuals who just like to help out. And so we're trying to find a way to get this guy financed. And what I have found over the years is that everybody's just a little different. Their needs are different. Fortunately, there's a finance guy out, or there is a lender out there for just about every circumstance. But if you don't know where to find them, pardon me, then you may never find them. So we're very good at that. Once again, I would tell you that we have a certain few guys on our team that between them, they know just about every bank in the state and probably half of the ones outside of the state. And they know every alternative lending option that there is available. And so, what's another resource that I bring? Well, I bring not only the ability to help them find the lending institutions or whatever, but I bring them the rest of our team that I can go to with just one email and say, hey guys, here's an issue I have. What recommendations do you have? And within 12 hours time, I'll have, 24 answers that I can go through and begin examining. Also, we have an extraordinarily deep referral network of which you are a part. And so I know that if I see a weakness somewhere, for example, a client of mine, when I began working with them earlier this year, they were having a problem getting their taxes done in a timely fashion. The person they were working with was, the same person they'd worked with forever. And they had outgrown that person. Didn't make the person a bad person. They just, they had all of a sudden found themselves working with a much larger company than they ever thought they would. And so this client asked me if I knew anybody, and using our referral network, I was able to let this person interview several different options, and they made a choice, and they've been very happy with that choice. So what the services that we bring to the table are way wider than just what you would think. And to give you one more example, and maybe even the best example, Russell and I have been speaking to a client that's about to become a new client that we've been speaking with them for a couple of months. In learning what they do and what their needs are, Russell immediately began putting the puzzle pieces together in his head and started introducing people to this particular company, this client to be. Within the first 2 or 3 weeks that we were speaking with this client to be, Russell had found them 3 new clients. And so Russell made them money before they were ever a client of ours. And so what did we bring to the table? Well, not only did we bring business to the table, but frankly, we paid for ourselves. We literally, by helping them find revenue, they were able to pay for us and still have, tenfold left over. So, quite often we bring the ability to pay for ourselves or to help find new revenue or grow new revenue streams. Yesterday, I had a client that was looking to turn down 10 of their own new clients because they didn't feel like it was the right match. But it represented over $250,000 in the aggregate. And this is just over the span of a month and a half. And so we brainstormed a little bit and came up with a way that she could, in fact, make this money without having to change much of anything in what she does. So anyway, I'm sorry. I know I'm a little long-winded, but I wanted to answer your question thoroughly.
We're good on time. I do want to go into a few things that you said.
Sure.
First of all, plethora. That means a lot to me. One of the first words you said is we have CFOs that are stable. And I like the way you use that word because it's a good double entendre, really, because you offer stability.
We do.
So the stable is, like you just said, you have a huge resource network. You have an internal resource network. You have an external resource network, which I'm proud to be a part of. Thank you. So I thought that was pretty neat. And I can see I might have some prospects for you, which I'm going to have to introduce you to, because I go into the next word you used, which caught my ear, was systems. One thing if I've learned is that people will go, people will come and go. So you have to have a system in place that stays even after the people go. I know that one of the things people tend to do when they come in is they want to fix what isn't broken and make a new system. But maybe nPerspective could provide continuity when there's turnover, because you're going to have those systems in place that have already been proven to work, and you're an external source. You can come in and say, no, this system works. This is the way you should do it. I like that because I've run into that. I've seen people that when they get turnover or they change ownership, for example. I deal with companies that change ownership, and that sometimes that's a great thing, but most of the time it's not.
Right.
There's usually upheaval, and I could see that your company would help great that. And I also like what you said about you have a guy who's an expert at government contracts. I have a feeling that's about to become a big thing.
Could well be.
I think that government contracts are probably going to be focused in the next 4 years. Hopefully only 4 years. That's the only political remark I'm making right now. I do appreciate that you made them money. That's one thing that you wanted. I would stress that is nPerspective. We're not going to charge you. We're going to increase your bottom line and hopefully pay for ourselves.
Because if we're not doing that, we shouldn't be there.
Right. If we're not paying for ourselves, then we're not the right guys. Make sense? Okay, is there anything you want to ask me?
Well, actually, I will in a moment, but I'm going to be selfish and go back into something you said a moment ago, because I want to make a clarification, because you said something very, very brilliant a moment ago.
Me?
No. I know you do find that hard to believe, but systems. So to me, there are two kinds of companies. There is what we call an owner-driven company and a systems-driven company. So there was one, actually several of my clients fall into this category, but one in particular that I referenced earlier that brought us in. They recognized, among other things, that because they had grown so fast, they, the owners, were still the driving force behind everything. Nobody could take a breath without the owners weighing in on it, or approving or disproving, or having a say. And that really handicaps a company. It slows you down, and it also takes value away from your company. Because as you pointed out, let's say somebody wants to come along and buy your company. Well, if the entire company resides in your head and the rest of the employees are just, robots, how can the company possibly be worth anything unless you, the owner, go along with it for some extended period of time? And even at that, you're still getting a lot of not much.
Right.
Whereas if you build systems into your company so that you, the owner, can take a week off without having to worry, or sell the company, or whatever the case, and your company is always going to chug along because everybody is following the systems, now you got something. A systems driven company, the value of that has got to be 10 times that of an owner driven company.
I'm not a genius. I'll tell you why I know that, because we're going through that in my company. I was told that I needed to sell franchises. And then I realized, how can I take what's out of my head? Because it was an owner-based company. Everything was in my head.
Right.
So for the past 5 years, I've been developing systems. I've had other people developing systems. You've seen our automated online thing, our matchmaker. You've seen that system now. Wow, boy, did that take away a lot of my responsibilities, because people can do most of their everyday stuff on that. There are still times when I need to come in and say, oh, okay, from my experience, we need to do this or that. But I'm reducing those every single day. And at some point, we're going to have to talk, because I think I'm going to have to become a client of yours, because we're starting to get to the point where I need someone who is inside, who isn't full-time, who maybe I can pay for 4-8 hours a month, something like that, who handles the inside or is by my side when I go do the new projects. Just like you said, that it really speaks to me, because I'm starting to realize it's just exactly what you do. And someone who's in that stage, like you said, the second stage, when they're now expanding, when it's beyond what just the owner, what Frida and Freddie Frazzle could do by themselves. Now they need to have a system. I think that someone like nPerspective and you yourself, Ron, would be excellent resources to transition to that. So I hope
Thank you,
that's
John.
what you want to say.
That's exactly who we are. And thank you for putting it in those terms, because that's what we do. Quite often I think, let's face it, we're all leery when somebody comes knocking at our door, and why should I hire you? Why do you want to pick my pocket? Well, we don't. We really, really, really exist to help. And when we're introduced to somebody, it's because that somebody, maybe a mutual friend of that somebody in us, recognized a need and they care about them. And while we may not be the perfect choice, at least it's a start. So lots of options, lots of opportunities, and we provide a pretty valuable service. I'm really proud of what we do, because we truly do help companies in a good way, not just another scam artist trying to make a couple of bucks and then run away. When we're done with a project, that company is better than it was when we started, and we have paid for ourselves.
Perfect. That's a great summary. This has been a great interview, Ron. I want to thank you for joining me. It's okay for you to get your bourbon out now if you'd like.
Thank you. I may
I would like you to have a drink with me. And we're not yet meeting I guess we're going to meet in person here pretty soon anyway.
We should.
Yes, we should. We need to go back and have coffee again, at least, or
At
bourbon.
least.
So let's talk about where we are. As we said, folks, if you want to contact us, if you want to hear more about Ron, you can back up to the video and you'll see his information at the beginning, and I'll go to that screen quickly before I end. If you want to contact the show, if you'd like to be on the show, be a guest, you have interesting topics, suggestions, questions, there's the way to contact us right there. As Ron and I both said, email is the best way. But you can call. So I had 2 calls while we were, here. I did the text in a meeting. I'll call you back later. So I want to back up and just show you there's Ron's information. Thank you for joining us, Ron. And I guess I'll see you at the next event, which is, I believe, next Thursday. Is that right?
That sounds correct.
Yeah, that we're both members of the CEO Leadership Forum, and we will be publishing information on how you could join us at that webinar where we're discussing all kinds of topics, but mostly how to do business the new way. And boy, are there some changes coming.
Amen.
All right, folks, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in next week on I'm Calling HR.